Good evening as it is here, and thank you for watching this introduction to interim management video. My name is Simon Berry. I have been for the last 20 years at various times an interim, a consultant, a coach, a facilitator, and sometimes all at the same time. For those who've done interim management, you'll know that often you end up playing all four roles within one assignment. Perhaps of more interest to you, though, is that for the past probably 10 of those years, in parallel with my own interim career, I've been helping others get into interim management or helping them decide if interim management is the right career choice for them. And having worked with probably now in excess of 3,000 people, there are certain things that have stood out for many of them and helped them not only to make that decision, but also build successful careers as an interim manager, should they choose to do it. Probably 30% of the people, 40% of the people I work with chose not to go down the interim management route, and that's a good outcome for me as well. In a way, I don't really care whether you become an interim manager or not, but what I do care about is that you make the right decision for you. So it's not a right or wrong decision, it's whatever suits you at the time. So what I've done is put together a couple of a few videos to help answer some of the questions that really stand out for people, and introduce you to some of the tools which may help you make the decision, but may also help you embark on a successful career yourself. Clearly, in the short videos, it's nowhere near the depth that we go into on the workshops, which you can find at interimmanagementworkshop.com. But I'm hoping it's going to be valuable to you anyway. So one of the first questions that people ask is, what is an interim manager? And if you go on the internet, you'll find any number of different definitions. And you'll find also lots and lots of discussions and arguments about, should it be an interim executive, or should it be an interim executive manager, or an interim executive consultant? And in a way, some of those discussions, whilst there may be some value to them, largely to the client, they're not that interesting, because most clients don't really care what you call yourself. They're more interested in the value you can deliver them. But it is worth looking at the definition and looking at how it's different from a consultant. So a common description of interim manager is an executive or senior manager who works within an organization at or near board level on a temporary or part-time basis. Most assignments are still full-time for a set period of time, let's say between 3 and 9 months. But there are more part-time, i.e. 2 or 3 days a week interim roles coming through. But I guess the confusion comes about with executive or senior manager. So what's an executive or senior manager? One of my coaching clients, who described himself as a contractor, told me that he wasn't posh enough to be an interim manager. And when I asked him why he thought that was, he said that he'd never been at director level in a large organization. Now, you know as well as I do that just because you've got the title director doesn't necessarily mean you're any good. So largely the title isn't the important part. The important part is, have you worked and delivered results? You worked on projects and delivered results that were of significant importance to the organization or the business unit that you worked at. And if you have, and in this guy's case, he'd helped save one of his major telecoms clients over £90 million year on year. I think that qualifies him to be an interim manager. So have you run and delivered results on major change projects within the organization, or held senior roles? Would be some combination of the two starts to make sense. Perhaps what makes more sense, however, is looking at what the interim manager does and how they're different from perhaps consultants, contractors, freelancers. So let's start with the fact that a potential client has got a problem, and in order to fix that problem, they need to go through 4 stages. They need to analyze what's behind the problem, what's causing it. They need to design a solution to overcome those challenges and those causes. They need to implement the solution if they're ever going to realize the benefits, and then they need to make sure that that solution continuously improves and doesn't wobble back to the way things don't wobble back to the way they were beforehand. Now, and I say this, that the general view of consultants, and this is a general view, it may not be true of you if you're a consultant, but the perception of consultants is that they operate primarily in the analysis and design phases of problem solving. So they produce some kind of solution document, but they don't go so far as to implement it. Traditional view, and I realize some are moving more to implementation, the traditional view is consultants will analyze and design, but they won't get their hands dirty with implementation. Traditionally, you would see interim managers who are focused on change being about implementation. So they're about taking pre-designed solutions or strategies and implementing them, making them happen, and delivering the business benefits and results. And then there is a second form of interim manager, which you might want to call GAP, who are those interim managers who step in when, for whatever reason, one of your senior management team is indisposed, either being made redundant or off sick or simply retired. And you need somebody to fill the gap pretty quickly whilst you find a new full-time person. Now, as you look at this, you may start to think, and I guess you will, well, where do I work? Where do I work? And with many of you, it could well be the case that you could do all four. I tend to think that people fall into two camps. There are those who enjoy and are challenged by the implementation of change and tend to get a little bit bored when they're managing the status quo or continuous improvement. It's not so much you can't do it, it's which would you prefer to do, which is where does your preference lie when you're thinking about your working life in the future. It's also true that the line is a little bit blurred between interim managers and consultants. There are plenty of interim managers who will analyze, design, and implement. So they're brought in right at the very beginning to help the client understand what the problem is and what's causing it, design a solution, and then go ahead and implement it and hand it over eventually to the in-house team. And there are interim managers who are called in to implement, and when they start implementing, they realize that the solution they're implementing isn't going to deliver the business benefit that the client wanted. And they can do one of a couple of things there. They can either just carry on implementing it, or a good interim manager will go back to the clients and explain that this isn't going to deliver the results, and either they need to stop implementing straight away. Well, they probably need to stop implementing straight away, but also the interim may well offer to start doing some analysis and design so that they can come up with a solution that will work. So if somebody is positioning themselves with a client as an interim manager, or the client, as often can happen, will say, oh, you're just another consultant, and along with consultant comes all the baggage that people often carry around about consultants. I think this is quite a neat way of differentiating yourself. As an interim manager, you are focused on and accountable for delivering business benefit, delivering results. In fact, your whole brand revolves around delivering business results. And once you get a reputation for delivering results quickly, effectively, efficiently, then marketing yourself becomes infinitely easier. So I hope that's been useful. Look at some of the other videos which will address some of the other questions that people have asked, and some of the tools that have helped them make this decision and develop a successful career. And of course, have a look on interimmanagementworkshop.com for additional resources. I hope it's been helpful. Thanks ever so much for watching. Bye now.